The DREAM Act, as it's been written originally, is too broad, to be honest. It basically would apply to too many people. And it would, in essence, I believe, have the unintended consequence of encouraging people to come and do that in the future. So I think there's an alternative route that I've been trying to work on, and I think I've found significant support for it, both in my own party and hopefully with some Democrats.
A country locked in the midst of a racial divide no one expected and no one thought would be so prevalent with the first African-American president. Marco Rubio remains the man who might be king if his stand on certain issues doesn't get in the way. And the tale of political cross-dressers. All this and much more. We go around the dial and welcome to MidPoint, host of the syndicated Ed Dean radio show, oddly enough named Ed Dean. We welcome him to the show.
Good seeing you, Ed.
Good to see you.
Two Eds are better than one.
It's always good. That's what I keep telling people, but they just don't quite grasp it. Let's try to grasp Marco Rubio here because, hey, as I said, he's the guy who could be king. People said at a time that he was a shoo-in. He was definitely going to be the Republican candidate. How's he faring thus far, in your opinion?
The insiders have said that he is running for the, well, I don't know if he can win New Hampshire, Iowa.
Who isn't running these days?
Well, that's true. Or who's trying to get a radio gig or whatever, yes. But yeah, Marco is running. Many people perceive him as not as a conservative. So let me play devil's advocate. Marco, for the social conservatives, has been out front on the pro-life movement. He was out front on the debt ceiling debate. He was out front on Obamacare. He's been wrong on one issue, on the amnesty. The question is among many individuals out there, is it enough to derail him? I don't know. He's been conservative, but he was wrong on one issue. Do we throw him under the bus for that?
Well, that's just it. There's always this idea of many people to youthify, if you will, the Republican Party. Because let's face it, the Republicans are still seen by many people as a bunch of old guys just sitting around.
Look at the
so
last
they
two
need
presidents.
to have somebody there.
Great point. Last two presidents, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, under the age of 47. Think about that for a second. And a lot of it, you know, some people say it's just older white guys running for the nomination here. I will tell you, there may be a youth versus Hillary. She's going to be, what, 69, 70? Marco could attract a younger crowd. I don't know. I mean, how do you attract the younger crowd? Go talk about Edward Snowden, drones. Remember, the younger crowd came back out in more numbers for Barack Obama, primarily in many of the southern states in 2012. It's a vote that needs to be gotten out there.
Well, the Democrats did a great job using social media, not only the last time, but the time before that when Barack Obama originally ran. The Republican Party still hasn't quite grasped this thing. I still think of them that they sit in their offices sometimes and go, we have this thing named MySpace. We have to try this out one of these days. They still haven't gotten it. And wouldn't you agree that's a way to get to a lot of these young voters? They don't get their news from the traditional sources anymore. They get it from Newsmax. They get it from Twitter. They get it from places they wouldn't have gone before.
You make a good point. Barack Obama in 2012, and many people don't realize this or believe it, he was running ads on Facebook. You know, they had this thing optimized, Republican, Democrat. He was running ads on Facebook in 2012 talking about how that they had the lowest amount of government spending in history. What they didn't tell you is they didn't pass any budget, so technically you're running on a continuing resolution 4 years previous, you're going to have the lowest amount of spending. But they were bragging about having the lowest amount of government spending after they were been told that we spent so much money with stimulus, bailouts, and everything else. But they won. They got their message across, just as you pointed out, on social media.
Looking at many of the messages that have turned out to be wrong, and lies, whatever you want to call them, political covers, if you will, in your opinion, are the American people now, and those younger voters, are they smart enough to actually elect the right president and to be able to sift through all of the flotsam and jetsam that we see from all these candidates?
Wow. I mean, boy, you loaded that one up.
I did. I got to throw it up. It's a softball.
Well,
I'll give you a shot. Or I'll throw you the fastball.
Let me try to get a double off of this one. I would try for a grand slam, but let me go with what's realistic. In Florida, they're trying to pass this medical marijuana initiative here. Will it sell? I don't know. It's not full-blown legalization like Colorado. I mean, you still got to go to the doctor. You still have to prove you have an ailment or whatever. It could be much more of a pain. Young people are very impatient, as you see right now. And the bottom line is how do you win them over? Do you sit back and say, well, we'll throw your student loan debt, which is a mistake. We'll give that. We'll forgive that debt right there. The Republicans, in order to, as you say, go after the youth vote, listen, as I say, going after those in the black community, you don't need to ghettoify your message. You need to be a missionary. Show up. At least get in the community. Doesn't mean you have to sell out to Hispanics or those in the minority community. Show up like a missionary does from church. At least show that you're in the mission field. You can address these issues and then try to reason together here.
All right, now let's talk about the reasoning of Hillary. the Republican candidate, whomever that would be at this point.
The supporters of Hillary are saying, remember, go back to the days of Bill? Think what it could be with Hillary. They're trying to equivalent Bill and Hillary. I need to remind Democrats that the Clinton economy of huge capital gains tax cut, remember, went from 28 to 20%, much bigger than that of George W. Bush, deregulation of telecommunications, Glass-Steagall, ending welfare as we know it, probably the lowest spending we've seen compared to government levels in years. But remember, he worked with the Republican Congress and a Republican Senate. He was the president that W should have been. Clinton was the deregulation president. Now, he's also the guy that also wanted to have premium support payments, the same thing that Paul Ryan talks about when it comes to Medicare. Liberals are not, well, they don't know about it. They forget about it. They think raising taxes. Hillary and Bill are night and day. Forget Benghazi for a second. If you want to talk about how bad how Obamacare is, let's talk about the godmother of single payer in the 20th century. That is Hillary Clinton. Goes back to 1993. Remember, Obama ran to the left of Hillary in 2008 when it came to health care. Bill and Hillary are not the same. When you look at Hillary, you will not get the Clinton economy.
Then why does she get all the support that she gets right now?
No much thrown at her right now. I mean, there's not a deep bench. You got Martin O'Malley, maybe Brian Seltzer from Montana. Who else knows who may run? And right now, Secretary of State, she can actually sit back and say, but when I was Secretary of State, not really this foreign policy message we have. It's only after I left. And let's be honest, Bill Clinton is still hip.
All right, so about a minute left here. The one name that we haven't talked about yet, Mitt Romney.
Right.
And you talk about there's now a draft Mitt Romney campaign, and there's Republicans saying that absolutely he should get a shot. He's had 2 chances. Why would anybody believe that another go-round with Mitt Romney would be successful?
Ask, I don't know, Adlai Stevenson back in the 60s who ran for the Democratic, I mean, even Nixon, but that was pretty much when they tied everything together.
Bench there is a deep bench on the Republican side.
Deep bench. I think it's going to be a governor. I mean, if Scott Walker can win his race, and he's up for a big battle, he may be another one. John Kasich, Rick Perry. I think people are going to be looking for an executive of a state. And remember, the majority of presidents over the last 40 years have all been governors. Carter, Bush, Clinton, and Reagan.
You didn't mention Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, well, I mean, is Ted running?
I'm just making sure.
I like Ted.
We don't know, but he might just be another one there, and a lot of people put him right in that same category.
I think Ted brings a lot of comments and discussion that should be brought to the table that many Republicans won't touch.
You bring comments and discussions to the table as well, my friend. It's always good to have another Ed on the show because it always shows that we should be the ones running the world.
You are correct, sir.
You know that. Okay, long as we know that, that's good. All right, next hour here on MidPoint, it is the failure to learn from history in the Middle East. And after the break, time to set the record straight on the hyperbolic news coverage of the Tony Stewart case. And not only that, but how the lemmings seem to let themselves be taken in by what the media is saying about it. It's all coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.